Welcome to VRD History, where we dive into the research and development that defined the icons of motorsport. In 1994, it was the most feared car on the Formula One grid, not just by Benetton's rivals, but by the men who actually had to drive it. To anyone not named Michael Schumacher, Rory Byrne's Benetton B194 was a weapon of self-destruction. It was twitchy. It was hypersensitive. It snapped without warning. Teammates like Jos Verstappen and JJ Leto looked at the telemetry in absolute disbelief. The car defied the laws of physics. Yet Schumacher was winning world championships in it. But Rory Byrne hadn't built a flawed car. He had executed a radical aerodynamic masterstroke, a design philosophy engineered for a very specific, almost superhuman driving style, a style pioneered years earlier by Germany's ultimate lost prodigy, Stefan Bellof. This is the technical autopsy of how Rory Byrne weaponized a chassis for a singular genius and changed the DNA of Formula One forever. Before we can understand Schumacher's Benetton, we have to look at the grid he inherited. In the mid to late 1980s, F1 was entering a brutal horsepower war. The low-nose, heavy ground effect cars dominated the straight lines. But a few select teams proved that mechanical efficiency and raw driver feedback could punch above their weight. Enter Stefan Bellof and Ken Tyrrell's legendary 012. Driven by the naturally aspirated Cosworth V8, the Tyrrell was massively outgunned on power. Yet, in the pouring rain of Monaco 84, Bellof did the impossible. While Ayrton Senna was managing brutal turbo lag, Bellof was dancing the Tyrrell on the edge, using its instant throttle response and high mechanical grip to hunt them both down. Bellof possessed a supernatural ability to sense the rotation of the car through his hips, adjusting his inputs in milliseconds. When Bellof's life was tragically cut short in 1985, his manager, Willy Weber, when searching for the next German prodigy, he found a young karting phenomenon named Michael Schumacher, and by 1992, Schumacher was about to walk directly into the garage of a designer who was waiting for a driver exactly like him. By the early 90s, legendary Benetton designer Rory Byrne was chasing a radical aerodynamic concept, the high nose. Traditionally, F1 cars featured low, flat noses that effectively acted like a plow, blocking air from cleanly reaching the underside of the chassis. Byrne realized that if he raised the nose and suspended the front wing on distinct pylons, he could open up a massive, unobstructed channel of clean air directly beneath the center of the car. The result? The airflow underneath the car was heavily energized, feeding the rear diffuser and generating a massive increase in total downforce. But in aerodynamics, nothing comes without surprise. By shoving all that clean air underneath, the aerodynamic balance shifted dramatically forward. The car gained an incredibly sharp, hypersensitive front axle. On turn-in, the front gripped instantly, but it made the rear end dangerously loose, unstable and prone to sudden, violent oversteer. To the average driver, it felt like driving on ice with a broken steering rack. But Rory Byrne didn't need to find a stable, easy-to-drive car because he had Michael Schumacher. But building this aerodynamic masterpiece was made infinitely harder by a sudden stroke of the FIA's pen. Just a year prior, Byrne's 1993 car was an electronic spaceship, utilizing active suspension to keep the chassis perfectly flat and stable. For 1994, the FIA banned it all. Active suspension, traction control, and ABS were gone. Byrne was forced to strip the electronics out and rely entirely on passive mechanical springs and dampers. Without a computer to keep the car level, managing the hypersensitive airflow under this new high nose became an engineering nightmare. Worse still, Byrne was bringing a knife to a gunfight. The B194 was powered by a Ford V8, a nimble engine, but one that was drastically underpowered compared to the monstrous Renault V10 in Adrian Newey's Williams. To compensate, Byrne didn't just rely on the high nose. He engaged in obsessive mechanical packaging. He shrank the side parts millimeter by millimeter, utilized an ultra-lightweight, all-titanium gearbox, and shifted the center of gravity as low as humanly possible. He built a car that couldn't beat Williams on the straights, but would absolutely obliterate them in the corners. It was an uncompromising chassis. Just like Stefan Baloff in the Tyrrell, Schumacher didn't fear a loose rear end. He weaponized it. Schumacher's unique driving style was built on an ultra-aggressive turn-in. He would brake incredibly late, violently throw the front-pointed nose into the apex, deliberately brake the rear traction, and then use the throttle to steer the back of the car around the corner. Where the other drivers panicked and corrected, Schumacher was in complete harmony with the instability. Byrne realized he didn't need to cure the B194's nervous rear end. Instead, he tailored the mechanical grip and active system specifically to match Michael's lightning-fast reflexes. Byrne maximized the absolute theoretical peak of the car's downforce, knowing that Schumacher was the only human capable of catching the car when it snapped. It was a lethal masterpiece, an ecosystem where designer and driver were perfectly synthesized. The B194 was so impossibly fast through the corners that rivals grew deeply suspicious. Ayrton Senna famously stood trackside at the Pacific Grand Prix just to listen to the Benetton, convinced he could hear the distinct, stuttering audio profile of illegal traction control. The FIA launched a forensic investigation into Benetton's black boxes. What they uncovered was technical espionage at its finest. Deep within the engine software, hidden past the visible menu options, lay Option 13, a fully functional automated launch control system. Benetton claimed it was redundant code from the previous year, too dangerous to delete without corrupting the software. The FIA couldn't prove it had been illegally triggered in a race, but the message was clear. Rory Byrne and his team were operating at the absolute edge of the grey area. By building a chaotic car around a singular genius, Rory Byrne didn't just win world championships for Benetton. He learned a profound engineering lesson. He learned exactly how to weaponize a technical philosophy around a generational talent. And in the mid-1990s, a man named John Todt was watching from Maranello. He realized that to save a failing, chaotic Scuderia Ferrari, he didn't just need a fast car. He didn't just need a good designer. He needed to transplant this entire technical ecosystem wholesale. The high nose, front-pointed, hyper-responsive DNA born at Benetton was about to be painted red, and the sport of Formula One would never be the same again. Hit subscribe, because in our next video, the Dream Team finally arrives at Maranello, and the Red Empire begins. See you there.